and I'm going to show you how to complete the lamination that we started in part 1. In part 1, we cut the strips and glued in the contrasting strips. In part 2, now that this is dried up and I sanded it down a little bit to make it easier to do the cutting, I referred to my pattern to see where I want the lines to cross, and I drew in pencil lines that give me my cutting line. Since I'm working with cherry, which is a hardwood, I put tape, clear tape, over the lines. And what I'll do now is go over to my scroll saw and using a number 12 blade, I will cut the wood on these lines. All right, now I'm going to cut along these lines. Now these pieces of wood have been cut into 3 across the grain, and we're going to go over to the disc sander to sand these smooth so that we can have a nice glue line to glue in the remaining 2 pieces of Paduke. So let's go over now to the sander. All right, as I did in the first part of the lamination, I'm going to sand the sides so that when they pair up with the pieces of Paduke, they'll be nice and smooth. I'll do that by using the disc sander, using a very light stroke back and forth so I don't sand off too much wood, because now we want to keep the size constant. There's less forgiveness on the second cut than there was on the first cut, and we'll do this until it's nice and smooth. Now that I've sanded the strips, I'm going to glue them up the way I did in the first part of the lamination. I'll put glue on each side, put the piece of Paduke, rub it together, put glue on the next side, rub them together until I get a good join. What I have to watch out for, though, in this part of the lamination is to make sure that the lines continue straight. So as I glue them up, I need to make sure I don't get slippage, which is why a good rubbing back and forth is important. So let me show you the first couple of strips. After they're all glued up, we'll clamp them the way we did for the first part of the lamination, let them dry thoroughly, and then when it's all dry, give it the final sanding so we have a nice flat lamination for your bowl or basket or whatever it is that you're going to use this for. Spread the glue on. Spread a nice thick glue line here. Put the piece of Paduke in. Rub well. Slippage is going to be very important here. So I want to make sure that it's nice and solid and it just begins to drag a little bit. The first one. Then we'll go to the next piece. Notice I'm keeping them in order because I want to keep the grain as continuous looking as possible. Again, I spread it. Back and forth. Until it starts to drag slightly. What I'm going to do is pull it down, I'm going to check, and sometimes if you're really not sure, you take a straight edge and hold it along the edge so that your eye isn't fooled, just to make sure you have a nice straight line. But you can do final adjustments after it's all glued up. And I'm going to continue with the strips until all of them are glued up and ready for clamping. Right, now I have all the pieces glued up. To make sure that the lines are nice and even, I'm going to tilt it this way and check to make sure that these run through, since it's sometimes hard to tell. Since the eye can be fooled, take a straight edge and run it up right along the edge on each of the pieces And if anything looks slightly out of alignment, you can give it a slight shift before you put the clamps on. All right, the last step is to put the clamps on, as was done in the first part, and give it a good overnight dry before sanding it smooth.